years. This was a very niche part of the internet for a while, and this was one of the techniques from Dr. Mike Mew that became very popular. I would say that this is kind of just like the most surface level form of looks maxing that's sort of been known, throughout internet spaces since, really about 2016, I would say. But like the more hardcore forms of looks maxing weren't really discovered and weren't really in the mainstream until a little bit later on.
See, the people watching this who've never heard of you go, why are you giving all this airtime to this guy? It's all quite interesting, but what's special about you, right? And I would argue the reason the New York Times did a big profile on you is that you're now making, it is reported, at least $100,000 a month from your daily stream, which often involves hours and hours of you just streaming whatever you're up to. I presume you'll include your impressions of how our interview goes, for example. It is fascinating to me that someone like you at your age can come and become a millionaire really by just using a load of phraseology combined with, I guess, self-improvement. I think you about self-improvement, but you're combining the two and what people, young people, perceive to be a cool way, which you have tapped into, which is very lucrative. That is why you're interesting, right?
Yeah, I would say so. And I don't really think it comes down to the finances. That's sort of something that has been, really pushed in the media for some reason. But I don't think that social media money in this day and age should really be that surprising to people. I think there's content creators who are a lot better off than me financially. So I'm kind of just shocked that people cared about that headline so much. And the thing is, Piers, simply what I'm saying is my life is kind of on a one-to-one linear timeline with my exact ideologies that improving your looks is going to have a direct correlation with improvement in your life, right? So sort of as soon as I started really ascending and really getting into those high percentile looks, look at what happened to my life, right? I became that millionaire, I became famous, and a lot of things just started going really well for me. Who knows if this would have happened if I were, in the lower percentiles of looks. Maybe some of it could be attributed to charisma, to my personality and uniqueness, but I would say for the most part, this wouldn't be possible. This generational run, as they like to say, would not have been possible without the looks.
You mentioned your charisma. What another phrase is jester maxing.
Yes.
The act of using humor, clowning, or absurd behavior to gain attention from women. That's just chatting them up, isn't it? And having the old gift of the gab.
No, I think jester maxing is its own category, right? Being funny, that's not necessarily jester maxing. I would say that jester maxing, a lot of the times it's like that kind of self-deprecating humor, someone cracking an egg on their head or something like that and saying, oh, look at me, I'm such an idiot or something in front of girls. So it's its own very unique thing. Just being a clown and, stuff like that. I think everyone knows a jester when they see it. And sort of once you know this terminology, you're going to be able to use it in your day-to-day life quite perfectly.
Have you managed to seduce many women by cracking eggs on yourself?
No, I have not.
Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced jester maxing is the way to go.
No. I'm anti-jester maxing. Yeah. So no.
You're anti it.
Yeah. Jester maxing is a very demeaning term.
You agree with me?
Yes. No, I agree with you. Absolutely.
I got it. Jester maxing's it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've got this on the rant. So jester maxing's an insult.
Oh yeah. No, the last thing you want to do is be a jester. The very last thing.
Got it. Slay maxing, that means to have sex, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the significance of using the word slay?
Slay is just sort of a term that we use on the forums for having sex with a girl, because a lot of people would directly correlate success in their ascension with success with females, right? So getting a slay was sort of like the ultimate pursuit for looks maxers. I think it goes a whole lot deeper than this. I think a lot of it, and the reasoning that you should looks max is just overall quality of life stuff. But, improvements in the whole dating scene is certainly something that we've seen. So that's kind of just placing like a value or, just being able to gauge your successes.
And your argument is, as you've pursued this Lux Maxing campaign for yourself, you've become more attractive and you've had more women.
Yeah, that's correct.
So in that sense, you're very different to someone like Nick Fuentes, who told me proudly that he's a virgin. He's never had sex.
Right. Well, I don't really understand why it's so, controversial to say that when, that's for religious reasons, right? I seriously doubt that you would ever say that to someone who is of the Islamic faith, someone saying that they're reserving themselves for marriage. I think, you would probably be screwed in media if you were to use that same argument against the Muslim that you did against Nick, simply because he's Catholic.
Yeah, but hang on, it wasn't. I didn't use it as an argument. I just asked him if it was true. I didn't care either way.
No, you knew what you were doing.
It's just interesting to me that
you knew exactly
what do you think I was doing.
You were trying to make him look bad and sort of use the whole thing of him never having sex with a woman as some sort of like insult or some sort of way for you to, make him look bad. It was just a little ridiculous.
Well, actually, all I said to him was, do you think you'd be less intense about everything if you just got laid? I was just having a bit of fun with it. I was doing a bit of jester maxing.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that's just attacking someone based on their, religious beliefs. And I don't really think that makes any sense.
You don't think Nick Fuentes ever does that?
Well, this is about you. If you want to morally grandstand over people, just because he did it, does that mean I can do it? Like, that argument no longer applies, right? So you kind of have to pick. No, it is. It definitely is morally grandstanding.
I'm not morally grandstanding, but I do think if somebody, for example, like him, has been very critical of people who are Jewish, for example, and have a Jewish faith, what's wrong with questioning him with his faith? And by the way, his faith's the same as mine. He's a Christian. I'm a Catholic, right? And I had no problem with his answer. I was just curious what kind of person he is. I'm curious what kind of person you are. What's interesting is you're clearly very different people. Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to come to the van, and you're all in the same van. And I'm sort of scratching my head as to what you guys have in common. I just don't see that you have much in common with someone like Fuentes, or why you would think it would benefit you to be seen with him in the way. Well, in fact, let's come to it, because it was quite interesting. One of the few controversial things, genuinely, I think you've been involved with, was this scene in Miami when you're in a van with the Tate brothers, with Nick Fuentes, with Sneeko, and you all end up. Let's take a listen to the clip. Oh my God. I'm curious, when you look back on that, when you watch that video, are you comfortable about that?
Well, listen, Piers, historically you've, kind of been talking about this whole thing with Ye for a little while, so I've actually got a Ye thing as well for you, so. Why would you go to that island, Piers?
Which island?
You know what I mean? So that's the point, is like we could all point fingers and show bad clips.
No, wait a minute. Which island? You mean the Epstein Island? Obviously I've never been there, never met Epstein, never had any connection with him, not in the Epstein files other than references.
Other than.
Things that nothing to do with him.
Brutal, other than.
Well, no, you can go read them. The beauty of the Epstein files, you can go and check my name, you can read every entry, you'll see none of them have anything to do with him or his activities or anything. I just mentioned in passing as having been completely unconnected events.
Well, so, what about Ghislaine Maxwell?
I met Ghislaine Maxwell.
Oh, yep, there you go.
I'm about to come to that. So I was pictured with her. Okay, I was pictured with her at a book launch for 5 minutes. I've talked about it. She admitted that under oath. The only time we'd ever met was for 5 minutes. So I have no connection to that scandal at all, other than I once met her for 5 minutes at a book launch. So let me come back to you in the van with the Heil Hitler song.
Well, this is like a little bit ridiculous because you're with the number one Lux Maxer. No, Piers, you're with the number one Lux Maxer.
I'm going to finish my question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Let me finish my question. I'm just curious because Ye has now publicly apologized for all his anti-Semitic behavior and language in a full-page advertisement he took out in the newspaper. That came after the thing with the van. You've seen Andrew Tate trying to backtrack from what happened there. Fuentes doubles down because that's what he does about everything. He views it all probably as a bit of a joke and it doesn't matter. Stico, I don't think really matters. He's not significant in the way I think that you are in terms of influence. But I look at you there, and you've got a guy behind you literally doing a Nazi salute as Heil Hitler plays in this van.
So ask him about it.
A song that basically pays... Well, hang on. A song that pays tribute... Well, you're singing along to the song, and it pays tribute to the most genocidal monster of the last 100 years. And I'm just curious whether you think it's funny, whether you now regret being put in that position, whether you wish you hadn't been so enthusiastic about singing along to that song, or whether you don't care at all. And I don't have a fixed answer for you. I'm just curious what you genuinely feel.
Well, the thing is, Piers, I'm not political, and I didn't play the song, so that's kind of all there is to it, right? And I find it quite silly to me that you're with the number one Lux Maxer, and instead of asking how you could ascend so that, you know, your wife wouldn't tweet out captions like, when my husband's away, Mr. Sud comes out to play, maybe if you asked me how to ascend, then that would stop happening to you. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you're distracting, and that's fine. You're having your fun. I've got no problem with that. But just to be clear, you were in a van singing along to Heil Hitler. Do you regret doing that?
Well, I didn't play it, right? So it's like if someone were to come next to you in the street and play a song, it's like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know why you're trying to get political with me. And this is exactly what I mean by your production. Wait, listen, Piers, at the end of the day, I've got nothing to do with it. I've got nothing to do with it. So like, you know, I really have nothing to do with it. I have nothing to do with it. And this is what I mean, right? So you basically lied to, you know, my PR team that you wanted to come and interview me about Lux Maxing. And this is what you do, right? You try to catch people off guard, and
hang on. Stop being such a baby. I spent the first half hour of the interview taking you seriously about all the Lux Maxing thing. I find it genuinely interesting.
Okay, so let's talk about that. I'm not political. I'm not getting political with you.
Let me finish my point. All right, let's try and keep things simple. There's no reason not to be. I'm just bemused why you would want to be associated with those other guys, most of whom have doubled and trebled down on it, who don't care, they don't mind idolizing Hitler, they think it's funny, they joke about the Holocaust, and so on. I'm not sure you're that kind of person, but you have a chance to tell me whether you are.
I just told you, I'm not political. I'm not political, but...
political to chant Heil.
But like at the end of the day, it's like I don't know why you're trying to make me this political figure when it's something that I've tried so hard to avoid. It's like I want to talk about Lux Maxing, but like my position on everything is like I'm not going to be you know, scared to collaborate with people. That's something that was good for my career objectively, to collab with bigger creators. It's like just as I would with any leftist. Like it really doesn't make any sense for you to do this whole Jester Max where you're trying to make me this like right-wing guy when I'm telling you straight up.
I'm literally doing...
Well, no.
Hang on. I'm literally doing... Hang on, Clav. I'm literally doing the opposite. Mm-hmm. I'm actually giving you the chance to say you're not one of those right-wing guys.
I'm not political. There you go. For the sixth time. I just said I'm not political. Okay, that's That's my comment.
Because,
So it's like, if you're gonna make me like
nothing to
come
do
on
with,
here
it's nothing,
and denounce like every single
it's
political
nothing to
figure,
do with,
I'm not
it's
political.
nothing, it's
That's
nothing
all
to
you're
do,
getting, Piers. That's
okay,
all you're getting is I'm
okay,
not political
yes,
whatsoever in any way.
okay,
Okay, so back to looks
Trav,
maxing.
I understand.
Back to looks maxing, Piers. Like
Trav, I
you're not
understand.
gonna have
I'm
this
going to try,
gotcha moment where you have.
Trav, I'm
Go
going
ahead.
to try, okay, it's not a gotcha moment. You were singing Heil Hitler, right? You made it political, not me. As I said to you at the start of the interview, I will always challenge people on what comes out of their mouths. You were singing Heil Hitler with a bunch of people, some of whom have been brazenly anti-Semitic. I'm simply asking you, do you feel comfortable looking back on that video? Do you wish you hadn't done it? And do you understand why people were so offended by it?
Yeah, I absolutely understand why people are offended by it, but at the end of the day, it's like something that went viral, and like I'm a content creator, but it was sort of more of a headache than it was a positive. So at the end of the day, and I'm not political, and this is kind of like what happened was now people are asking me all these questions about podcasts. So it's just really not something that I want anything to do with in terms of like my content to do political stuff, to do any of these like huge PR stunts. You know what I mean? So I'm simply here to advocate for men's issues and looks maxing. So that sort of distracted from that a little bit. So that was never the goal.
I get it. So I get it, which is what I thought would be the case. So just to conclude that.
Okay, you don't have to like keep going for clarifications. It's like I told you,
No,
I'm not political.
I'm not asking for clarification.
That's all I'm gonna say about it.
I'm asking you just one more question about it.
Well, I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna
Oh,
answer. I'm not gonna answer. So move on.
okay, all right. We haven't had the question yet.
I'm not answering your questions about politics anymore. So this is exactly what Knowles did to me that landed me in a lot of trouble with the whole thing about JD Vance. Is like now I attacked JD simply because, and I was trying to comment on looks, right? But this went viral all over Twitter, and it distracted from my message. So that this is not like something that I want to keep happening, where it's like I simply make a comment about someone's body fat percentage, and all of a sudden I'm a left winger, I'm a Democrat, I support Newsom. It's like, no, I just simply said that he's fat, right? Like I didn't support anyone's campaign.
Look, had you waited, clap, you're getting ahead of yourself, because had you waited, I'd have said I totally understood what you were doing with JD Vance and Gavin Newsom. You weren't making a political statement, you were making an aesthetic statement.
Right.
I didn't think you got political there. You were simply saying JD Vance looks a certain way, Gavin Newsom looks a certain way. For your look maxing aspirations for people, Newsom ticks more boxes than JD Vance, right?
I said that he mogs him, yes.
Yeah, so I got that, and that's why I didn't think that was political at all. My last question on the other matter, and you don't have to answer, I'm going to ask you the question, is given what you said about understanding why it offended people, wishing you hadn't done it and so on, would you like to apologise for being involved in that?
I didn't play the song, so I've got nothing to say about that.
You're not sorry about singing along to it?
I had nothing to do with it, Piers, at the end of the day.
You did sing it?
I had nothing to do with it, Piers. Like, I don't know why you're trying to, constantly circle back. It's like, I'm not political.
No,
I've answered it.
I'm not.
I've said all I'm going to say.
I've just given you three opportunities, giving you expressed regret for people who were offended and so on, to apologise. You've chosen not to. You don't have to. I'm not forcing you. I'm not trying to.
Would you like to apologize for being with Ghislaine Maxwell and being in the Epstein files? Would you like to apologize for that?
No, because
based, no apology. Based, yeah. Epstein had aura.
No, you don't understand.
Epstein had aura, Piers. W admit.
Sorry?
Are you saying he had aura, so you're not going to apologize?
No, what do you think I'm apologising for?
Well, you just said you're not going to apologize.
What do you want me to apologise for?
For being involved with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein.
Well, obviously, as I said to you, I never met Epstein or had anything to do with him. None of the references to me in the Epstein files show any improper behaviour at all. I'm simply mentioned in references to disconnected events like luncheons and so on that had nothing to do with him or Maxwell. And I met Ghislaine Maxwell for 5 minutes at a book launch where we talked about her father, Robert Maxwell, who owned the newspaper that I was the editor of for 10 years after he died. So there's nothing to apologise for. Whereas in your case, because you've expressed regret over being caught up in a situation that you said was out of your control, I don't think it's unreasonable of me to say, well, are you sorry? If you're not, you're not. If you are, now's your chance.
Well, listen, we've talked about, all those situations. So I think if you have any other questions, we could just move on to that. And I won't bring up your involvement with Ghislaine Maxwell.
Okay. No, you can. You can talk about that as much as you want. Very happy to.
Well, I'm here to talk about looks maxing, like I told your production team. So that's kind of what I thought you were going to interview me.
I don't mind.
Well, because
I have no problem with you talking to me about Ghislaine Maxwell or Epstein or the scandal.
What I would hope not, because you're a political commentator. I'm not. That's I would hope you wouldn't have a problem with that, because that's literally your job. But it's not my job to sit here and talk about all of these different political issues. It's really not my job. It's not something I give a shit about.
Can I offer you that I have 3 sons, right? And they're a bit older than you. If you were my son, I'd be applauding you for the amazing business you've built for yourself. I think a lot of what you do in the self-improvement thing is perfectly laudable. I think there are some parts of it which I'll come to which are a little bit more concerning. Mm-hmm. But if one of my sons was caught in a van with a bunch of people, some of whom have been proudly anti-Semitic, and they were singing along to a song called Heil Hitler, I'd have a firm word with them and I'd get them to apologise to people who were rightly disgusted. You've chosen not to, and that's fine. I'm not gotchering you. I'm just saying, do you feel sorry? If you don't, you don't.
Don't worry, your sons will never have as successful of a media career as me, so you won't have to worry about any PR disasters. But for the love of God, are you ever gonna move on from this line of questioning, or
yes.
You want to just sit here for?
I'm going to move on now.
Go ahead.
I'm going to move on now. There's a thing called bone smashing. Now, this is the bit that I find concerning. This is a dangerous and pretty discontinued and discouraged practice of actually hitting bones in your face to create a more chiseled look. Have you done this, and do you encourage people to do it?
Yeah, so I have done this. This is something that was part of my routine for years and still is. The problem is there is sort of a barrier to entry to all this stuff that comes with just intelligence, right? So if you tell people about bone smashing and they're super low IQ, they might, hit themselves in the eye and cause a lot of trauma or, severe harm to themselves. So these are things that could be very dangerous if, done improperly, but also things that can have a lot of benefit. And this is always the nuance that I give. So it's sort of a double-edged sword on whether or not I recommend it. It's if done properly, with the proper precautions, it can be a good thing, and it will be a good thing, but there is a lot of risk involved.
See, I just don't think smashing your face up is a good thing to be encouraging anyone to do.
Okay, well, tell me why not.
Because I think the obvious potential downside massively outweighs any potential upside.
Like what?
There's also a kind of wider point I'd say to you, which is, well, to me, my overriding view of your whole...
No, but why do you not recommend bone smashing? Why, what's actually wrong with it mechanistically?
Well, self-evidently, because smashing... Well, I can tell you why I don't recommend bone smashing. I literally smashed a bone 5 weeks ago. I broke my femur falling over, needed a hip replacement. It's wrecked my life for the last 5 weeks.
Well, we're talking about very intentional, localized microtraumas, not talking about falling over and breaking your hip.
I know, but yeah.
So are you saying it's not possible for you to have, a semblance of precision to not just completely shatter, your orbital rim or something? Like, it seems like a very easy thing to do.
I think my overriding question about all of this for you
So what's
is
wrong with it? What's wrong with
it
Bone
smells
Smash?
slightly. Hang on. Well, look, I don't think it's a good idea to encourage people.
But why?
You're perfectly entitled to. If you've done it and it worked for you, great. And I don't dispute that you look good, right? You're a good-looking young man, no problem.
Thank you.
Or that you've been very successful with your philosophy. Okay, these things are just a given. But I've met a lot of very good-looking people in my career, and a lot of them end up miserable, right? Because their looks eventually fade, and they can't deal with it, and they end up turning to drink and drugs, and they're depressed, and it's awful to watch because they pride aesthetics over things that are more important. Character, for example, your personality, intelligence, education, wisdom, all these sort of things.
But why are you doing the same thing where you make it mutually exclusive? They're not mutually exclusive at all. None of the things that you just mentioned.
I'm not. But are you not concerned that partly this is driven by insecurity on your part?
No, I would say that would be applicable to most people in the looks maxing scene. So I don't think that's a bad argument for you to give. But for me, for my specific case, it's based on objectivity, right? It's based on real world data that shows looks are extremely important in the workplace. Looks are extremely important in dating. So that's kind of the reason that I go about looks maxing, but that might not be so true for everyone.
I want to just mention some famous men who I would argue are better looking than you, despite not having pursued a life of looks maxing. This is just my objective opinion. Robert Redford, Paul Newman,
Okay.
Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Cristiano Ronaldo. There's 5. What's your response?
My response is Brad Pitt has had multiple facelifts. Cristiano Ronaldo has had a lot of dental work done. People have speculated that he's had some work done on his jaw with filler. So all these people, if you think that they're not looks maxing, Hollywood actors, that's just completely ignorant and a little bit silly almost.
That wasn't what I said. I just said that they are potentially better looking than you.
Yeah, and I really wouldn't have a problem with that argument. Like, I don't really think that I'm like, the top echelon of looks. I would say that I'm probably above average in my looks, but it's not, a hill for me to die on to say, oh, I'm the best looking person ever. That would be a ridiculous argument, and it's not one that I've ever made, right? So to just name 5 people that are better looking than me.
In your estimation, who is the best looking person in the world, and who's the best looking person ever?
Oh, that's a tough one. The best looking person ever, well, we might not know who that is, but certainly, what I've said when this question is asked is based on objective mathematics. Matt Bomer scores the highest in terms of facial harmony. But, there are some other things that go into it, like, coloring, like angularity, and dimorphism. So, while that's true about the objective harmony measurements, it would take a little bit of thinking to kind of determine, and maybe some surveys.
And what about women? Because I was very surprised about what you said about Sydney Sweeney. You said, I would say that she's pretty malformed. Her upper maxilla is extremely recessed. She's got the eyes of doom with no infraorbital support. She's not really that much of a looker in her face. I think that a lot of people with porn brains find her attractive because of her body.
True.
Very ungentlemanly comments. And
well, maybe a little bit.
You couldn't be more wrong. She's like the hottest sex symbol in Hollywood right now.
Well, yeah, but like I said, that's because a lot of male society is obsessed with pornography. They're gooners, right? So that sort of body type and that sort of archetype is sort of what they're looking for. And this is sort of true about most of the famous OnlyFans models, most of the famous porn stars. is they don't have model faces, right? They would never be seen on a Victoria's Secret runway. They simply have big tits and big asses. Excuse my language.
What's wrong with that?
I didn't know if this was like a live thing or not on the media network. I don't know how this works.
Oh, no. I don't mind your language. It's uncensored. You can say what the hell you like.
Oh, okay.
I'm just curious what you have a problem with your problem with those particular women's body part measurements.
I don't think it's a problem at all, but it only becomes a problem to me when you sort of place these things higher than the face in terms of sexual desire, right? I think a girl with a good face is, a lot more desirable than these, sort of curvy models who don't necessarily have good bone structure facially. They've got a lot of, phalos. They've got recessed convexities. So like that sort of thing is not really what I'm into. The whole Sydney Sweeney look.
Do you not think it sounds a bit misogynist, though? Can't you give women a bit more of a break? I mean, to study them in such extraordinarily pedantic detail, overanalyzing every inch of their aesthetics, and if they don't reach your high levels of maxing, then they must be rubbished.
Give women a break. I mean, women won't even look at a man who's under 6 foot as a human in a lot of cases. Like, what are we talking about? They are the most fucking brutal gender, and this is the most brutal dating market that we've ever been in. So for you to sit here and tell me that I'm being too mean or I'm not being gentlemanly, it's just a little bit silly. We just have to look on the other side of the aisle to see what's going on, and I think you'll find me pretty justified.
If your theory is right that transmaxing is the only route to happiness, how is Donald Trump the most powerful and successful person in the world?
Well, because he's very tall, he's got a good phenotype. A lot of the looks features of Donald Trump, like his facial width to height ratio, are favorable, and there's a lot of traits that are sort of universal in presidential campaigns or presidential candidates rather, like that of their height. You really never see short presidential candidates do well. So this is still all about aesthetics, right? He still fits within the categories that I'm talking about.
So your position is that Donald Trump is a looks maxing example and Sydney Sweeney is not.
First of all, I just said that Donald Trump has a lot of the traits that make someone do well in a presidential campaign.
No, but
you asked why he's the most.
Well,
you just asked why he's the most powerful person in the world, and I'm simply telling you it's because he's 6'3". He's got a super wide facial width to height ratio, and these are things that have been researched to be super beneficial in a campaign.
The problem with becoming famous like you and suddenly getting all this attention, Clav, is that you start to get a lot of unwanted attention. You got arrested 2 weeks ago. You were in custody on suspicion of possessing a forged instrument, using a fake ID and so on. The charges were dropped, I should stress. You've talked about using drugs like crystal meth and so on as a stimulant for hollow cheeks and so on. But with your higher profile comes risk, doesn't it? Both of unwanted attention from authorities, who may take a dim view to your use of drugs and talking about it, you've had problem with people having sort of stalker behavior to you and so on. How are you dealing with that part of fame?
Yeah, that's certainly a lot more difficult. You can't really fly under the radar. I can't really go out in public anymore without security. It's like you want to just go to a bar and have a good time, getting swarmed by people wanting to take photos, which is great. And I think it's one of the best things that has ever happened to me, but it's just a different life, right? So I'm not really sitting here and complaining because, the pros massively outweigh the cons. Yeah, so you do have to operate, a little bit differently, but it's something I've gotten used to. It's something I'm pretty well adjusted towards.
What's your dream? What's your ambition? Where do you want to be in 5 years?
Well, I want to keep ascending. I want to be able to be extremely successful in my career. Maybe find a way to have a little bit more balance in my life where I have some time to, start gym selling again. Maybe not as many streaming hours. So just finding a balance, figuring out a way to be a little bit more sustainable because the current routine and the current hours that I work are quite brutal.
Do you want to get married, have kids, settle down?
Piers, I really couldn't tell you that at such an early age. I'm not really opposed to anything, and I think I'll kind of figure it out, but I'm just not ready to answer that question, quite honestly.
Yeah, fair enough. Poly market, the prediction market, has an open market on whether you might be charged with any criminal offence by the end of June. Apparently, there's a 20% chance, according to the guys who know where to put their money. What would you say the chances are of you being charged with a crime by the end of June are?
I don't know. I don't want to put any bad energy out there or stuff like that. I'm gonna try to, stay on the right side of the law as much as I can. Let's just say that, and I'm gonna try to keep myself out of trouble.
What do your parents make of it? You're from New Jersey. You had a nice privileged upbringing. I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that just as a
Yeah.
fact. What do they make of your phenomenon?
Well, I've sort of disappointed my parents for most of my life, and that kind of was true up until quite recently when the success was so great that they sort of had to ignore all, the bad stuff and the bad press that was happening that their friends were seeing because, right now it's undeniable that I'm, doing so well financially that it's kind of worth maybe their friends seeing some clips of me talking about stuff that they might not necessarily like. So it's kind of undeniable now.
Did they have a word with you about the Heil Hitler thing?
My parents didn't talk to me about any of the recent PR stuff. They don't really comment too much on anything that happens on social media. We talk quite frequently, and they're going to be at my house, in Florida in a few hours. So I'm quite close with them, but they try not to bug me too much about anything that they see on social media.
And if they ask you, hey, you were on Piers Morgan earlier, how did it go? And I presume you'll talk about this on your own streaming as well. I mean, how do you feel it's gone? We've spent nearly an hour talking. We've covered a lot of stuff. How do you feel it's gone?
I thought it was going really well until you wanted to get political, and I sort of like talking to you for most of the time until then. And right now, this is flowing a little bit better. So I think if we were to just do what was originally intended and talk about sort of my ideology with looks maxing, its relevancy in the modern dating market, I think we could have even been, pals that talked off camera. You never know, but making it political was never just something that I wanted to do.
You see, that's very interesting, because my honest answer to that is I think we could get on perfectly well. And I felt that before I interviewed you. Having researched you, I was like, this guy's nothing like Andrew Tate or Nick Fuentes or Sneeko. He's not to the right like those guys. I don't think that you look back on that Hitler thing with any great sense of comfort or pride. I think you probably, if you're honest, wish you'd never done it. You probably do feel sorry about it. Because I don't think you're one of those guys. And the way you get branded with them in a lot of the media coverage now as a direct result of what happened that night, I suspect is irritating to you because it's not really where you want to sit in the public domain. There's nothing before that suggests that's where you want to be. And when you say to me, I shouldn't have got political, it's the same thing that I explained to you at the start about my interviews with Tate and Fuentes and others, is that all I do is put to people what they've done and said, right? In the same way that you said to me, I saw a picture of you with Ghislaine Maxwell or you're in the Epstein, and I can answer you. I expect to get questions, I answer them. And my advice to you is if you don't want to be asked about stuff like being in the back of a van with a bunch of right-wing headbangers singing Heil Hitler, then the best thing to do is not be in the back of a van singing Heil Hitler with a bunch of right-wing headbangers. Would you agree with me?
Not necessarily, because like if someone puts a song on and you're sitting in a car, like I don't really understand how that's supposed to be my fault. And like, why do you keep coming back to this, man? It's like it's so silly to me, you know?
Well, because you said to me that the only part of the interview you didn't like was when I got political, and I'm throwing back at you that the only reason I brought that up is because the biggest news story involved.
But that's not even like a relevant. That's not even like a relevant story. That's like something that happened like over a month ago. It's like that's literally 4 press cycles previously. Like how's that even something that you're still bringing up?
Of course it's relevant. Of course it's relevant, and it's not me being.
Not at all.
It's something you did. You got to own it. You got to own it and say whether you feel ashamed about it or not, whether you're sorry or not. It's up to you. I don't care. It's just something that you did that was very newsworthy and very notable. And like I say, I don't think you're one of those guys. Maybe you are. Maybe you want to keep hanging out with them, and maybe you don't have any problem with it. I just don't think you're one of those guys.
Listen, I have no problem collabing with controversial figures, because that's just kind of my brand. Is like, the same way that you're uncensored and the same way that you interview people, the same way I'm gonna, do collaborations. So I really have no problem doing any of the controversial collabs.
Well, look, we spent nearly an hour talking. I've enjoyed getting to know you a little better. I hope we do it again. I apologize in advance for viewers who will watch this and think that I clearly mogged you. You're just going to have to live with that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you got me, Piers. Well, it was good talking. Thanks for having me. I hope you have a good rest of your day. So take care.